Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White to my right, Ian Donis and Arlene Violet, and we're joined for the political roundtable by WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi. All right, so we're going to talk about television ads, traditional spending by the campaigns. It's starting to heat up. Bulk mailing, radio, we're seeing more of that, especially in the races that have a contested primary. I want to start with arguably the most eye-catching television ad yet. Democrat David Siegel is running to replace outgoing Congressman Patrick Kennedy. Let's take a quick look at some of his spot.
Highlights? You wouldn't trust a corporate puppet to do any of these jobs. So why do we have so many in Washington? I'm David Siegel, and I've stood up to corporations and their puppets to put working families ahead of big banks, utility companies, and corporate developers.
All right. On the plus side, it's creative. And I'd also say it's critical without coming across as negative. But Ted, I first watched the spot with you up in our new newsroom, and you beat me to the punch on something that stood out to both of us. What's the downside of David Siegel using a puppet in his ads?
He's young, and it looks like Sesame Street, right? So David Siegel, he's 30 years old. He got into the state legislature as a young person, and already you're hearing people talk about when we're out talking to voters that, you know, he seems a little young. Does he know enough, you know, about a homeowner's experience, a taxpayer's experience to represent us in Congress? And although that ad, as you say, is very eye-catching, it also, you know, puppets for someone with a young issue. You know, it could raise those questions again.
Yeah, go ahead,
Well,
Arlene.
I always have a conflict, too, about it. He ends it by saying, I'm not a puppet. And I just wonder if that's a little Nixonian, I'm not a crook, I'm not a puppet, because if you repeat this, people are going to say, oh, that's the guy, the puppet guy. But it's a mixed message, and I'm not so sure it's effective because of the wrong messaging potential coming out of it.
Yeah, but isn't the goal here for David Siegel, who, you know, he's a smart guy, isn't his goal here just to get his name out there? The last Brown poll he had was abysmal numbers, and you know, we're doing a segment here in a roundtable talking about TV ads. It's the first one we chose to talk about.
I think Ted's right about there being a little possible risk in this, and Siegel being 30 years old in the use of puppets, but it is an attention-getting commercial. Siegel's something of an unconventional candidate with an unconventional ad. We'd like to think this is a political season in which voters don't want politics as usual, and this is not your grandfather's political ad.
Yeah, and you know, it's one thing to spend money on getting the ad done to make it, and that obviously has some overhead. But I actually haven't seen this ad on television. Has anyone actually seen it on TV yet?
No.
I saw it on the internet, and Siegel seems more of an internet guy than perhaps some of his fellow Democrats in the 1st Congressional District. He does have a little bit of a national following among progressives, and I think he hopes that this kind of ad will help in turn to increase his fundraising nationally.
We could easily imagine this going viral, YouTube, people linking to it and everything, which could be a whole different form of...
And the people he might want to target. And we'll stay with the 1st Congressional District. David Cicilline using a more traditional approach in his ads. Of course, he has a war chest to fund a slew of them. Here's a piece of an ad from Mayor David Cicilline.
I'm very thankful to David Cicilline.
God bless you.
Times are tough, so David Cicilline is fighting for every job he can, fighting for new investments and job training.
You want the back first?
So you got that driving music. You have David Cicilline shaking hands with, you know, workers in a gritty factory. He's still hammering away at his track record in creating jobs, yet the Providence Journal's PolitiFact was critical on his resume for economic development claims. But, you know, driving ad here, you know, job creation, he has a focus. It's the job, stupid, Arlene, effective?
That's the message of this election, number one. He's also got a senior citizen one. That is your grandfather's ad. And frankly, it's smart that he does, because in off-year elections, it's older people that traditionally go out to vote in those elections. So while this is the more grandfather meat and potatoes kind of thing, I think they're brilliant ads, this one, as well as the senior citizen one.
This is much more of a traditional political commercial, and Cicilline has the benefit of a war chest that is significantly larger than any of his fellow Democrats, so he can just run these to a great extent and try and establish his image in the mind of voters and TV viewers without regard to whatever might be the factual record in the news. And it's a fairly effective ad.
Ted, what do you think? Was it effective in the senior citizen one? I mean, targeting a base that is going to be out there on September 14th.
Yeah, seniors vote, especially in midterm elections, and in a September primary for a midterm election. I mean, he knows exactly who he's looking for. He has very smart advisors, and I think it's the jobs ad. The only funny thing with it is it could also be a Frank Caprio for governor ad. You could stick him in there and say, I'm for jobs, here I am, here's some workers who agree with that, and there we go. So the only question would be if people start to see a blizzard of these sorts of ads, if they're able to differentiate why is David Cicilline good for jobs versus this candidate versus this.
Well, that would be an argument, I suppose, to get out there early, because as you point out, you have that blizzard of ads that we're going to start seeing as we get towards the primary and certainly the general election. And you know what? Real estate with traditional media is going to get really tight and really expensive as we start approaching those dates. Third commercial in the Congressional District that's out there, Anthony Gemma. He's using his Hope Starts With Us slogan. Take a quick listen to this.
Hope starts with you.
Hope starts with us.
Hope starts with you.
Hope.
Hope starts with us.
I am hope.
All right, certainly high marks for production elements. He has that song going in the background, and he should have high marks for production elements. He's a media marketing guy, owns a media marketing business. And I know you can't get substantive in 30 seconds, but not a ton of substance there. Is he selling a brand? Is that his goal here, Ted?
That's how I see it. It actually makes me think of Obama, and how everything with Obama was...
But is that a good or a bad thing?
Well, that's the question, right?
Yeah.
Because our people also is Anthony Gemma a candidate who can be that kind of inspiring figure for Rounders, and is that what they're looking for in this race?
Gemma talks about wanting to reinvent government and constituent service for the 21st century. That's a complex thing. He issued a detailed jobs plan this week. It's a very lengthy thing, and trying to communicate that in 30 seconds is difficult. Whether he's able to establish himself in the mind of voters is a challenge that he faces.
This ad works, of course, if people are looking for hope. I'm not sure the electorate is onto a hope message like they were with Obama. I think there's such overriding anger that's the predominant emotion, and I'm not sure a message of hope is going to punctuate that.
So if you're running a campaign right now in the 1st Congressional District, when do you start, do you start going negative at all? Like what I said with David Siegel's ad, I think the benefit is it's critical without being negative. But Bill Lynch during the debate that we hosted, he was hammering David Cicilline's record. Do you think that's something we're going to start seeing? When do you go negative?
If there was fundraising parity among the candidates, I think we would already see that type of negative advertising with him. But Cicilline has about $900,000. Gemma has about $200,000 as of the last finance report. So Cicilline really has a tremendous advantage in having a much greater capacity to go on the air in a way that his fellow candidates cannot match at this point.
Yeah, I want to talk about the gubernatorial race right now. Besides an early slew of ads from Frank Caprio, the only TV candidate we've seen out there with a gubernatorial candidate we've seen with an ad is Moderate Ken Block. And, I've heard some people like him, hate him. I like him. I think they're crisp. And as I've said before, Ken Block comes across as he really is when you meet him in person. He's, you don't get a sense that he put on a ton of makeup for this ad. It's a tangible spot. But there was an interesting piece in today's Politico talking about independently wealthy candidates having a rough run this year. And of course, I'm leaning towards Lincoln Chafee here. One thought is that while it's easier to cut a check, to boost your war chest, the downfall of that is building a fundraising base, which then hurts grassroots, manning the phone banks. Ian, is this something that Lincoln Chafee could fall victim to?
Yeah, there have been questions about his fundraising all along. He does have a lot of personal wealth that he can draw on, and as an independent candidate, he doesn't have the organizational support that he would as a member of the Democratic or Republican parties. As Arlene has mentioned, Chafee can draw on some of the unions that have endorsed him, and that does offer him an organizational foot up. But he is one of the questions facing his campaign. He doesn't have a primary, but in the March to November, will he write that big check to help propel his campaign?
Ted, I want to put a internet question to you. When you look at the mayoral race for Providence, I was doing a story on the war chest for the candidates there, and I spoke with Councilman John Lombardi, who's a Democrat running for mayor. He spent a lot of money early on, and he drained his war chest to get his name out there. And he said he spent a lot of it on unconventional media ads, like on on Facebook, the targeting ads on social networking. How effective is internet advertising in a race like mayor of Providence?
I think that's the $64,000 question in a race like this, and I think it's too early to know. We have 60 years of research about television commercials and things like that. New media is so new, it's still developing, and for lower ballot races, things like a mayoral race in a city like this, the question is, can you use Facebook can you get targeted enough that you're really reaching the people you want to be? And then on top of that, is there really enough awareness of what's going on that people see, it's just a little ad on the side of your Facebook profile. Are people going to see that and make a connection to this race, as opposed to Clinton Obama, where they're already engaged with the race? It has a lot of media visibility, and I guess we'll find out.
It's not a bad strategy, because he didn't really have a ton of money, even early on. But part two of the strategy is, by doing that, you bring money in, and we're seeing that that's not happening, and he stands the potential of being outspent very, very much,
what do you
one-sided.
think he spent some money on, and so did Anthony Gemma, buses, the signs on the side. What do you think? You've run for office.
Buses, they are, the RIPTA is going to kill me, but buses don't work, and I don't think billboards work. Most people do not look at billboards when they're driving. It's only if they're stuck in traffic or something has happened that they'll look around. But I just think it's very expensive and not really a bang for the buck.
On the Facebook ads, John Laughlin, who's running for Congress as well, he, right after Scott Brown won the upset in Massachusetts, was on Facebook with ads saying, find out about Rhode Island, Scott Brown, John Laughlin. Now that might be a good way.
Yeah.
All right, we got to end the program. Ted Nesi, if you want to see more from him, you can catch it on WPRI.com in our in-depth section. For Ian Donis and Arlene Violet, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.